Hi, I'm Bart Hanson, the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description.
I've got a 2-5 hand for you.
Okay.
This is a game I play in regularly. It's a really soft 2-5 game, 300 to 1,000 buy-in, and so I play with the players every week.
Is this at a casino or like a home game?
Yes, it's at a casino, but it's a small casino,
Okay.
and it's sort of the game only runs 2 nights a week, the 2-5, so
Okay.
it's a lot of the same players. So there's sort of a dynamic there with that. 900 effective, and I'm on the button, and there's a lot of, limping with garbage. There's a lot of, weak players. So 3 people limp in, and I'm on the button. I've got 5-6 offsuit, and I over limp. I don't know. I do tend to over limp the button in this game with some speculative hands for 2 reasons. Because number one, I have a really tight image compared to the other players, and I think that sometimes helps, to show down some more speculative hands. And also they play, there's a lot of players that'll put in way too much with, a non-nut hand and a limp pot.
All right, so a couple things about this. First of all, how many people limped in ahead of you? And then I have one
3
comment.
people limped in.
3 people limped in? Okay. I mean, I've done this before at 5-5. I hope that the drop or rake structure is a little bit better than it is here in LA.
It's a time rake. It's $5 a half hour. So
Oh, wow. That
yeah.
is so much better than LA drop of $7 a hand. So you're talking
It is
about
really good stuff.
you're talking about that game that you play in at 300 to 1,000 taking 90 an hour from the table versus the game that you could play at the bike that might take as much as 250 an hour. That's incredible. So I actually don't have that big of a problem with it, but I will make one comment though with the 5. You said that it's because you want to show down some speculative hands. I mean, I just don't buy. I mean, that might be your thinking, but I don't agree with it. I don't think that's sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sort of my thinking, and you're probably right. But I do have,
Because I don't think anyone's paying
into this hand as
attention
well.
enough for there to be that additional equity in doing that. So what? You show down 5-6 offsuit as an overlimp one time. Does that mean that like someone's gonna change the way that they play against you later on?
Maybe not. Maybe not. You might
All right.
be right.
So 3 limpers, you limp the
That's my
button.
thinking anyway.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
And the blonde's complete. There's like a lot of limp pots.
Okay.
So
So it's like
not
5
unusual.
ways.
Six ways.
6 ways. Okay.
3 limpers.
Yep.
And the main villain is we're 900 effective. He's a reg, a bad reg that I play with. He plays regularly in the game. He's not a professional or anything, but we have history. So
Okay.
he over limped in the cutoff.
Okay.
So he was the last limper. And the flop comes ace, deuce, 4, rainbow.
Okay.
And it checks to me, and I bet 25.
Well,
And,
I mean, the only thing that I would say about this is like, yeah, okay, so you're betting 25 into 30. Do you think that like this is so you're basically giving if you needed to win this pot immediately, 25 into 30, you'd basically need to win about 40 to 45% of the time here. Do you think you're going to get this to fold through against 5 other people 40 to 45% of the time?
Not necessarily, but I expect anybody with an ace to bet out.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they could have a better hand than that and be checking a check raise. But if someone calls with a pair below an ace, I expect to be able to barrel them off a lot on the turn with a tight image. So
I mean, I guess you could go.
That's my thinking.
I mean, I guess you could obviously fire multiple barrels, but if people are in there with ace X off, like I see all the time, and you also didn't raise the button pre, I just find like you're going to have a hard time getting somebody off an ace. But okay, so you bet 25.
And the big blind calls
Yeah.
and the cutoff calls as well.
Okay, so call, then fold, and then call.
Right.
Okay.
So there's three players.
Yep.
The turn is an offsuit 3.
An offsuit
And
3. So you have the nuts, right?
I have the nuts. And the big blind checks, and now the cutoff, that's 75.
So this is interesting. So there's no possible like flush draws out here at all, right?
No, it's completely rainbow at this point.
So you have the absolute nuts here. I don't know if you said so. You said the cutoff was a bad reg, something like that.
I mean, he's limping in with a lot of hands. I'll put it that way. He has a extremely wide range, and
Right. I
yes,
mean, in general here, I feel like this is what I feel. What's your name?
Matt.
Matt. This is sort of how I feel in this spot. Like, obviously, it's totally rainbow, so you don't have to worry about anything sort of backdoor coming in. But usually, guys aren't going to lead out on the turn with like two pair here. Now, okay, yeah, maybe he could have a bluff, like an airball bluff, but he had to call something on the flop. And remember, he overcalled. So, I mean, you could
Right.
obviously approach this a couple of different ways. You could call to raise the river. Obviously, you could do that, but sometimes the bet doesn't come on the river. You would think a guy would bet a five here again at the end, but who knows? The board pairs. So when I look at this and it's like, well, if a guy's not really going to lead out here with two pair all that much, and it's a limped pot, I would probably just start building right away here. Even if you're only ever going to really do this with 5-6, it just doesn't matter. Obviously, the guy in the blind's not going to fold the five. Now, if you raise and he folds, okay, he didn't have a five. But anybody's going to tell me that he's going to bet and then fold the five is absurd, is ridiculous. So then, if he bets and he folds and he never has a five, then what does he have? Do you know what I'm saying? What does he have that you're going to get value from on the river? You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, when he leads out, I'm putting him on a five a lot. I mean, I'm not sure that he's going to check overcall the flop. If the flop is set, that's obviously in his range pre-flop, deuces or fours. But I think he has a five a lot, and I don't think he's ever folding it.
Yeah.
So I raised to 275. The
Okay.
big blind folds, and he thinks for a little bit, and he calls. And the read I got was that he was thinking about re-raising. I didn't get the feeling that he was playing a fold,
Yeah.
but he did end up calling.
Okay, so you're in great shape here. By the way, just one quick thing too, like again, like is a guy gonna check over call a set and then now all of a sudden lead out when he can be beat on the turn?
I didn't really think so with the one-liner coming in.
Yeah.
That was sort of my thinking.
Yeah.
So so we're heads up.
Mhm.
The river is a four.
So it pairs to
Pairs
four. Yeah.
hmm
Mhm.
And he quickly checks.
Okay, so he checks. I mean, it looks like what we've got. Pete actually in the live chat said he could possibly have pocket threes. That actually is a possible hand, which is a gutter that turns a set that might play that way. That would be way more likely than say flopping a set. I feel like, and then leading turn. So it looks like the pot is 550 on turn, and then it was 625. It's probably what like 650 something like that, and you guys have what 600 left. Does that sound about right?
Right around there. That sounds about right.
I mean, here's the thing, like I guess you could go a couple ways with this, but I mean, like you're not all that deep. I mean, if I'm not gonna bet fold here at the end, then I would probably just move all in. Now, if you were deeper, or you're telling me that you want to like bet 275 to 300 and then fold to a check raise because he always has a full house, then okay. But I would sort of leave that probably for a little bit more stack depth. Like if you had 1,000 and you wanted to bet like 400 or 500 and fold to a check raise if you always had a full house. But again, there's not a real whole lot here that looks to me like is going to check call flop and lead out turn, with the exception maybe of pocket threes, or if he's really bad like ace three or something like that. You know what I mean?
hmm That was sort of my question, mostly on the river, because of the awkward, sizing. And against this player, I just didn't really feel like I can bet fold, because I felt like he likely had a five, and I could even see, that he might, come back over top with a five. I mean, that would be terrible, but I can't rule it out.
Right. I mean, I would think that would be unlikely, but I know what you mean.
So but I have a tight image, so I think if I move all in, I'm afraid I don't know if he'll call with a five. I ended up betting 250 on the river, and he
Okay.
so he tanked for a while, and he's like, oh, I had the straight two, and I can't fold it. I got to pay you off, and he called, and he had king five, so
Yeah, I would shove.
So, so
I would shove map. I like your raise though on the turn. I do. I think a lot of
yeah.
people get caught up with like just playing it sort of like, ooh, I got the nuts and or they dink and dunk it, like they make it like 150 or 175. You actually made a good sizing. Now, my only question to you is also too on that. If the river's a brick, like a 9, what would that change your sizing? I mean, because it sort of doesn't really change anything about what you just said.
Well, it probably would, just because of the fact that, I mean, he's not really. I mean, if I had a set there, if I somehow had flopped a set
Mm-hmm.
and I bet the flop and got called, and then he leads out on a one-liner, I'm obviously not raising that.
Right, but he
But
doesn't
I
know
don't
that,
think he's
right?
thinking that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
So the
right.
only reason it would change my sizing is because, if it's a clean run out and I have the nuts, I don't think he's pulling a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if the board pairs, and basically he said that. He's like, oh, you got a full house, and like I can never have a full house there, but he doesn't realize that. So
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know. That's
I
my
understand what
thinking.
you're
If it,
saying. I do understand what you're saying, but I think I just don't think that he whenever I'm playing 5-5, the guys aren't going to really fold a 5 there in that spot, and they just shouldn't be full. So I would just jam.
mhm.
But anyways, thanks for the call, and again, thanks for contacting me ahead of time. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA100. Click on the link right there.